so strong. Happy Sabbath.
Happy Sabbath.
We're so happy to see you guys here. We're so glad that you've joined us for worship this morning. It's beautiful out there. You could be anywhere else. You could be flying a kite. That's probably the most appropriate outdoor activity today. But we are going to do another activity together after church this morning. We're going to clean up all the garbage that doesn't get blown away by the wind. So we have a plan to go have lunch, do lunch however you need to. If you packed a picnic, you can stick around and join us. And then at around 1:30, we'll leave from this building and we'll walk down the street with our garbage bags. Wait, I brought a prop. It's going to be worth it. Ooh, there we go. This is a sponsored event. We are registered, and what that really means is that the city emails us every year, and they're like, you do a good job. Do you want to do it again? And we always do. So come join us. We've got our shirts. We'll pass out a couple and have some fun together. Other announcements today is that our offering is set up at the back to collect. We don't take one up as part of our service, but there's a giving station with an online option, an email provided for e-transfer. And today, all loose change, whatever gets submitted into or shared, emptied from your pockets into the bucket, goes to support the Hope Channel Ministries, which produce some cool informational programming around bringing people to Jesus. So that's awesome. A couple other things to keep in mind is that we are going to do some more outreach as the weather clears up and lets us get out there. Again, we were asked to participate in the Woody's RV World Marathon, which happens on the Sunday morning of the May long weekend. So this year, that's May 22nd. So starting next week, we'll have a sign-up sheet for the different blocks of time. You can come just for a little bit. It's early. It's usually around 6:30. We start making the sport drink, and by about 7:15, we see our first runners. But it's such an inspiring way to be part of the community and cheer people on and spend some time together outdoors. And we're usually done by about 10:30, and sometimes we go get breakfast after. So come hang out. Zion goes, oh, that is the best part. I mean, we love to serve and we love to be together, so when we can put those things into one activity, it's awesome. Something I like to plug too is this is registration season. We have two wonderful Adventist community schools in our region. We have a church school at the south of Red Deer that's kindergarten through grades 9, and we have a high school up in Lacombe that we love to participate in activities with. That's grades 10 through 12. They have a new building, and both areas are accepting registrations now. If you have a student or a young person in your life you love to support, you could recommend they go check it out. PAA has an open house on May 6th, I think. Did you hear that? Write it down. It's like a free day off school where you get to go hang out May 6th, and I will drive you if you don't have a way to get there. So that's good. That was an announcement for just an audience of one. And we have another one of those because one of our very special little friends is becoming a little bigger this week. Does anyone have a birthday coming up? I know of one. You know what? It is birthday season at Epic. There's like a whole spring chicken brood that got born all in the next couple of weeks. So we might be singing this song more frequently, but this week we want to sing it for our very special friend Elliot. Do you want to come up so everyone can sing to you, or sit right there? We'll sing to you and wherever you end up. Are you ready? Join me in celebrating Elliot's birthday this week. Are we ready? Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Elliot. Happy birthday to you. Well, we love to grow up together, and we hope that you grow in God this morning. Thank you so much for coming to Epic.
All right, I'm going to invite all the little boys and girls to the front for your story. All right, well, hello, boys and girls. Hi. Today I'm going to tell you a story that I loved hearing when I was about your age, which was long ago, so maybe I'll have to tweak it a little bit. Oh, we have more coming. Okay, so my story is about a little boy, and we're going to call him Johnny. Now, Johnny was around 8 years old, and it was summer, and he wanted a job because he wanted to be able to buy his own ice cream, his own toys, maybe even McDonald's, all the things that little kids love. And so Johnny went to his pastor, and he asked his pastor, he's like, "Pastor, I need a job." And the pastor also had an orchard. Does anyone know what an orchard is? No? It's like an area with a lot of apple trees. So the pastor had an orchard. And so he said to Johnny, he's like, "You know what, Johnny? I have an orchard. It's summer, and there are lots of apples to be picked. So if you come and help me out, then I will pay you to pick some apples."
Is this a true story?
I don't know. I heard it when I was a kid. So that's a good question. I never thought about asking if it was a true story, but it's not a long story, I promise. All right. So Johnny went to the pastor's house, and he worked in the pastor's orchard every day, and he would pick apples. And at the end of the day, he would go to the pastor, and he'll say, "Pastor, I'm finished." And the pastor will pay him $10. Now, Johnny was really happy about this, and he took the money, he went home, and he was so excited. He's like, "Mom, look, I have $10. I got $10. I can buy whatever I want to buy." And one day, Johnny went to work, and he was picking apples, and he got tired. And so he stopped picking apples, and he went under one of the trees, and he fell asleep. When Johnny woke up, it was late, and so he had to go home, and he went to the pastor, and he's like, "Pastor, I'm done for the day." And the pastor gave him $10. And Johnny thought to himself, "But I didn't really work." But he didn't say anything to the pastor. So he's like, "I didn't really work, but I still got $10. So the next day he went, and he didn't pick any apples. He just sat under the tree all day, went to the pastor and said, "Pastor, I'm done for the day." And the pastor paid him. And he would do this every day until one day the pastor decided that he was going to go out to check on Johnny. So that day when the pastor went out, Johnny was under the tree, and he made up a little song while he was there. So the song went something like, "Think I'm working, but I ain't." And the pastor heard him. So the day went on, and it ended, and Johnny went to the pastor, and he said, "Pastor, I'm done for the day." And the pastor said, "Okay, Johnny, come with me." And the pastor brought Johnny to the same tree that Johnny was sitting under, and he sat under the tree, and he crossed his arms, and do you know what he sang? Can anyone guess? Yeah.
Is it the song he sang?
Well, he made his own version of the song he sang. So he sat under the tree, and he sang, "Think I'm paying, but I ain't." And so Johnny did not get paid that day. But Johnny went home, and he felt so bad. He felt bad that he didn't get paid. He felt bad that he didn't do what he was asked. And he felt really bad that he had lied to the pastor. All right? So boys and girls, maybe it's not the pastor that's watching us all the time, but do you know who is always watching us to see what we're doing? God. God sees everything that we do. So we want to make sure that everything that we do is always something that's going to make him happy. Okay? All right. And that's the end of my story. See, it wasn't that long. Does anyone want to pray to end? No? Would you like to pray? You want to tell a joke? All right, let's hear your joke.
What do you call a unicorn that has 4 eyes, 8 legs, 2 veins, 2 horns, and 2 tails?
I don't know what.
2 unicorns.
That's a good one. All right, you guys can go back to your seats. All right, thank you.
you to soften my heart and break me apart. I need you to open my eyes and see that you're shaping my life. All I am, I surrender. Give me faith to trust what you say, that you're good and your love is great. I'm broken inside, I give you my life. I need you to soften my heart and take me apart. I need you to pierce through the dark and cleanse the heart. All I am, I surrender. Need faith to trust what you say, that you're good and your love is great. I'm broken inside, I give you my life. I may be weak, your spirit strong in me. My flesh may fail, my God, you never will. I may be weak, your spirit strong in me. My flesh may fail, my God, you never will. Again, I may be weak, your spirit strong in me. My flesh may fail, my God, you never will. Give me faith to trust what you say, that you're good and your love is great. I'm broken inside, I give you my life. Give me faith to trust what you say, that you're good and your love is great. 'Cause I'm broken inside, I give you my life. Thank you, God, for your love for us. May we continue to have faith in you, and as we continue to grow strong in the hope of you, may we continue to share your love, and may others continue to grow strong in your faith. In your name, amen.
Hello again. Hi. Hi. Welcome to Epic Church. Welcome to springtime. Yes? No? You don't believe either. Yeah, I don't believe either. I read that it's going to snow again. This is just not right. So a couple years ago, there was a lady, her name is Jennifer Nelson, and Jennifer Nelson was a filmmaker. So she made electronic noises. Okay. Should I? It's the guitar. Complete novices, people who weren't even lawyers, the company fessed up and ended up paying $16 million in back revenue to people who had paid them. Paying Jennifer, who, by the way, later on went on to become a lawyer because she's like, you know what, I'm pretty good at this. And it's this landmark case where nowadays you are welcome to sing happy birthday wherever you go. So you have Jennifer to thank for that. This is this classic story of a super giant corporation who's done this to Hollywood for 80 years, and then a freshman filmmaker who took them to court and won. There's something that we're walking around with. I don't know if you are, I am. You're walking around with something that you want to cheer for the little guy who takes on the big guy. You want to cheer for the Aaron Brockovich who takes on the big corporation and wins. So we're going to look at that classic story in the Bible, David and Goliath. And if you grew up in church, you're familiar with the story. If this is your first time, it's about a little guy fighting a giant with impossible odds, and somehow he wins. So we're going to look at a couple of passages and then make 3 observations on the story. So if you're with me, let's go 1 Samuel chapter 17. We'll be in 1 Samuel chapter 17. Whatever device you have, your Bible, your Torah scroll, whatever you're carrying around, an iPhone, an Android, that's okay too. All right, we're in 1 Samuel chapter 17. We'll just start right in the beginning. We'll read a couple verses. It says this: Now the Philistines gathered their forces for war and assembled at Soko in Judah. They pitched tent at Ephes Dammim. I didn't just say a bad word, that's in the Bible. Between Soko and Azekah. Saul and the Israelites assembled and camped in the valley of Elah and drew up their battle line to meet the Philistines. Oh, thanks, buddy. This is very helpful. David and Goliath. A champion named Philistine, named Goliath, who was from Gath, came out of the Philistine camp. His height was 6 cubits and a span. He had a bronze helmet on his head and wore a coat of scale armor of bronze weighing 5,000 shekels. On his legs he wore bronze greaves, and a bronze javelin was slung on his back. His spear shaft was like a weaver's rod, and its iron point weighed 600 shekels. His shield bearer went ahead of him. Goliath stood and shouted to the ranks of Israel, "Why do you come up and line up for battle? Am I not a Philistine? And are you not the servants of Saul? Choose a man and have him come down to me. If he is able to fight and kill me, we will become your subjects. But if I overcome him and kill him, you will become our subjects and serve us." So just to give you a little bit of background of what's happening with the story, this is happening about 15 miles away from the town of Bethlehem. That's where our champion's going to be from. That's where David is from. So it's 15 miles from his doorstep where this is happening. And this valley of Elah, where they're all lined up, this is the dividing line between the Philistines and the Israelites. This is the last defensible position into the highlands of Israel. If the Israelite army fails here, the Philistines can take over the country. This is their last stance. You know what? This story throughout the ages, whether you have a religious background or not, has made an impact on a lot of people. For example, if you go to the Israeli Defense Force today, the story of David and Goliath is one of their case studies on military strategy. One of the famous generals, his name is Moshe Dayan, he says this, as he's analyzing the story. He says, David fought Goliath not with inferior, but with superior weapons. His feat consisted not in the fact that he was a little man, ready to go out and fight a powerful enemy, but in that he succeeded in finding a weapon which gave him, the weaker man, the advantage. So everyone has like a take on this story. I don't know what your background is with this story today, but we're going to take one slice of it. Because there's going to be so much information in this story. And when you see information in a story in the Bible, every single detail matters. Because they don't have to tell you all this. So when they tell you something, it's because there's a reason. And the writer is not writing for information. He's writing for transformation. He's trying to move us somewhere. So that's the question we're going to ask as we look at this. All right, first thing we have in the story. When it describes Goliath, in the Bible, that is the largest description of armor and weapons anywhere. It's like the writer slows down and describes Goliath from head to toe. Again, why is he doing this? Because every little detail matters. He's trying to say something really clearly. Couple of highlights. Goliath is covered in tech from head to toe. It doesn't look like tech for us. Like we think tech is something else. But check it out. Goliath is not just covered in any tech. There's a couple of things that are mentioned. The greaves that he's wearing on his shins, basically like shin pads, metal shin pads. Try playing hockey with those. You'd kill some people. Good for you. And the javelin that he has in his back, those things don't exist in the Middle East at that time. Those two items, that's foreign tech. That's actually Greek technology, which is what tells some Bible scholars, to say this is one of the reasons they believe that the Philistines are actually Greek invaders into the Middle East, specifically from the island of Crete. So here's what Goliath has. He's covered in tech, and this is what you would know. You would know that when Goliath walked on that battlefield, he walked with some swagger. Come on. Yeah. Come on. Head to toe, best tech in the world. Okay, nowadays, Goliath would have an iPhone Pro Max, Super Max, because he's a giant, right? Get it? No? Okay. He'd have the Apple Watch. He'd have the Tesla, the Cybertruck. He was impressive just from his tech. And people notice this so much that it gets mentioned. It doesn't have to. The other thing is his spear. It describes the tip of the spear. Have you ever wondered why an author is taking so long to describe a pointy thing? It's saying this pointy thing is 15 pounds. Just a little bit of context. That's how much a shot put weighs. Actually, it weighs 16 pounds technically. That's pretty heavy. That's just a tip. But you're like, okay, I'm following. No, the very impressive thing about his spear is that the tip is made out of iron. At that time, there was almost no iron being produced. It is so expensive. But when you have iron, iron is harder and stronger than anything else. This means that unless you have an iron shield on you, which, by the way, no one would because it would be too expensive. When Goliath throws his iron-tipped spear at you, it will kill you. It means that everybody who was lined up, they noticed the spear right away, and they said, there is no safe place from Goliath. Whatever I'm wearing will not protect me. Goliath is going to get me. The last thing, this is a tip for the fashion people here. I know there's a lot of, some more, There's a lot of fashion people here. Goliath's shirt, his chainmail shirt. This is just made out of metal. The scriptures tell us that his shirt, 600 shekels, it means it's 125 pounds. His shirt weighs more probably than a soldier. 125 pounds. So this is what you know. The Bible's trying to tell us that when you saw Goliath come up, you saw all the resources and wealth of a country coming up to you, walking at you. But probably a thing that Goliath is most well known for is the fact that he's a giant, right? That he's a massive guy. He is 9 feet, 9 inches tall. That is just a hair short of an NBA basketball rim. And I know what you're thinking. You might be thinking, you know what, that's fine, but I've seen like Lord of the Rings. I've seen like real giants. I've seen ice giants. Like, that's not that impressive. But you know what? At that time, they have skeletal remains of the populations, and the average height of somebody was 5 feet tall. So when you're describing Goliath, you're finding an army that's looking at someone who is exactly twice their height. And if you don't have a background in combat, I don't know if you do, but the most important thing when it comes to hand-to-hand combat is reach. If Goliath can punch you and you haven't even gotten within anything, it's done. He will have incredible reach over you. And not just that, there's this other thing we have with Goliath's height. That word that we have for stature, which means height, it's the same word that you use to describe status. Did you know that taller people are perceived as leaders? They don't have to do anything. They just have to be a little taller. They've actually broken down Fortune 500 CEOs. The majority of them, and it was something like 96% of them, happened to be taller than average. George Washington, 6'4". All these places where you just have people that are taller and are considered to have status, to be leaders. And then there's this one little detail that we have in the story. One last thing about Goliath. It's this. We have it in verse 33. Saul, the king, mentions it. He says, Goliath has been a warrior from his youth. That means that this guy was bred for combat. If we read later on in the scriptures, we can tell that he is an Anakim, which was a specific warrior people that had all giants, and they were hugely sought after warriors. And this guy has been fighting from his youth. He's been training for this. He's seen battle since he was born. and not just that, everyone else in the story of Goliath is described as a man. Even the scared soldiers are described as men. David is described as a youth, actually as a boy. So the story is setting up just a real big contrast. Okay, so this is what we have. We have Goliath. When he speaks, he has stature, he has the experience, and he has the resources. And what does David have? In verse 18, when David is introduced, he's introduced as the one who is bringing some cheese. It's right there. David shows up bringing the cheese. He's the delivery boy, not the man. And he is the one who's going to be fighting the giant. Here's what we know. We know that the wrong person is fighting Goliath. It's the wrong person because you see, the king, his name is King Saul. When he is described as being the tallest person in Israel. In fact, 1 Samuel 10:23, it describes him as being head and shoulders above everyone else. And in 1 Samuel 15, it describes him as having the best weapons in the land. Saul's the only one who has the armor and the equipment to go toe-to-toe with Goliath. And not only that, Saul is also the only one who has the experience. He's actually led people into battle, into victory. The wrong person is fighting Goliath. Actually, you keep looking, and the entire chapter is trying to tell you that the wrong person is fighting Goliath. When David first shows up, carrying his cheese. I can't get tired of mentioning cheese, guys. It's so important to the story. His oldest brother, Eliab, shows up and says, "What are you doing here? I know your heart. You are here just to see a battle." And do you know how Eliab is first described in the previous chapter? He's described as the tallest in his family. So you actually have two other people that are more capable in every way to fight Goliath. Because who's this David? David is not only lacking in stature, he's a boy. He's lacking in experience. He's never seen a battle before. He's never actually fought another human. He's a shepherd, okay? He also has zero resources. He's carrying a stick and a sling. Come on. Have you ever felt like David? Have you ever walked into your life feeling like David? While others are off having their life, while David's brothers were off fighting, David is forgotten. In fact, David is so forgotten when the prophet Samuel shows up to bless and find the new king. All of David's brothers come out. They go on parade. And the father, David's father, has to be reminded, "Do you have another son?" He's like, "No, I don't think so. I think these are all my handsome young men right here." "Oh, wait. Yeah, there's that other one. The one that's not quite done growing. I don't think I like him. He's out there in the field. Let's go get him." He's been forgotten by everyone. His own father has forgotten him. Do you find yourself in that situation today? Maybe the school and the plans that you have, it's not turning out how you wanted. You've been forgotten. Or while others have their calling and they have their battle, they're fighting for something important, you've been left behind looking at sheep. While others get to wake up and have that war cry and have that purpose, you're delivering cheese. Come on, while others in your family seem to know where they're headed, you've been left behind. Or maybe you're in a season right now where you feel like you're walking into your first battle. Where you're about to finish school. The cool kids have cut you out of the cafeteria table. You're about to hit your first battle, and you have never been here before. And you know what? Saul notices that David is lacking everything. His complete lack of everything. So this is what Saul does in verse 38. It says this. So Saul clothed David with his armor, and he put a bronze helmet on his head. He also clothed him with a coat of mail. David fastened his sword to his armor and tried to walk, for he had not tested them. And David said to Saul, I cannot walk with these, for I have not tested them. So David took them off. Then he took a staff in his hand, and he chose for himself 5 smooth stones from the brook and put them in a shepherd's bag, in a pouch which he had, and his sling was in his hand, and he drew near to the Philistines. The thing is, Saul notices that David is so ill-equipped that he's compelled to give him all his stuff. He gives him all his best armor. He has to give it to him. At least Saul is polite about it. When Goliath sees David, he says, am I a dog that you come at me with a stick? Everyone here can see how inadequate you are for your life right now. This is what we know from the story, is that David's armor, this task, is not a good fit for David. He doesn't fit the role in any way. He doesn't fit the armor in any way. He doesn't have the skills in any way. He does not fit the situation. David is not a good fit, but something else is going on. You see, the career advice, life advice used to be this. It used to be, put your head down, work on the weekends, stay late, get there early, stay late, work really hard. And at the end of your life, you'll be able to retire well and enjoy life. That used to be the advice. Nowadays, we're seeing some research that millennials and Gen Zs don't want that information. They don't want to work and maybe enjoy life at the end. They want a work balance right at the front. They want to be able to live while they're working. The most important question that's being asked right now, and we have this it's called the great resignation, where people are just leaving their careers because people want to find someplace where they fit. The most important question is, am I a good fit here? Do I find my purpose here? Will I matter here? That is the most important question. So this is the question I want to ask us. How does a follower of Jesus know when they are a good fit for the challenge? How do you know you are a good fit for where you are right now? Is it because you're going to fit the armor? Is it because you're going to have the resources? How do you know you're a good fit right now in your families, raising children? Do you have the experience? Do you have the resources? Are you a good fit? How does a follower of Jesus find those things? Or maybe you're about to choose what your career is. How do you find what you're going to be a good fit for? Do I have the aptitude? Is that what's going to matter? As a community, we want to know, how do we know if we're going to be a good fit for Red Deer, reaching Red Deer in the surrounding communities? Because this is what we know in the story. David is way in over his head. In every possible way. He is way in over his head. But this story is actually about facing 3 giants. Check it out. He faced, the first giant was Eliab, his oldest brother. Then there's Saul, the tallest man in Israel. And then there's actually the Philistine. But that's actually not the 3 giants. It's kind of a distraction. The 3 giants that he's facing over and over again are resources. Do you worship resources? Do you believe that arms, the technology, that is what makes it right? Or the second giant, do you believe that experience is what matters? How well you've prepared, how well you train, what you have behind you, is that what matters? Or is it your stature, your status, how you're perceived? Are you perceived as a man? Are you perceived as a woman? Are you perceived as a boy, as a girl? How are you perceived? Because this whole story, it keeps telling you over and over again, whenever you believe in those 3 giants, whenever you give in into resources, experience, stature, whenever you believe those things, you may possess those things yourself, but because you're looking at yourself, you will always come up short. And the most competent people in the entire nation came up short, and their response was to be afraid. The whole story is to snap us out of it, to transform us, to move us in a direction that these three giants were actually the thing that was keeping all of the Israelites behind. What if the great temptation of life is that we take our eyes off of Jesus and we look at ourselves? And we look at our own resources and the material that we bring. And this is kind of the narrative of Scripture. You have a guy who's walking on water. He takes his eyes off Jesus. He sinks. He was never qualified to walk on water to begin with. You have an entire nation that miraculously goes through a desert, and when they get to the edge of the promised land, they end up looking at themselves. They become afraid, and they sink again. Because you see, when David walks into the story for the first time, God is mentioned. The perspective of God is brought by David, because from God's perspective, this youth is completely oblivious to Goliath's stature, resources, and experience. This youth is simply focused on God. And you see, here's the deal. It's really easy to give in to these giants. It's really easy to give into these giants. And this isn't to say that you shouldn't pay attention to your finances, to your resources. Those things matter. But sometimes we plan things. We say, we will not do this until we have our resources in line. Our church won't move until we have the resources in the bank. We won't take this challenge until we have the experience behind us and we've done other things. But that's not at all what's happening in the story. The story, when God shows up, when God leads, you start moving in that direction. In fact, the encounter is described as David started running towards the giant. Because here's what you have. You have an entire nation who wakes up, in verse 3, to have a battle cry, to come and sing together, to come and speak together, to come and worship together. And then they do nothing. Only one steps out in action. And at the end of the story, there's this throwaway detail. Like we said, every detail matters. It's this. Verse 54 says, "And David took the head of the Philistine and brought it to Jerusalem, but he put his armor in his tent." What is that? The story's already told us that David can't handle Saul's armor. It's already told us that David is the wrong size for Saul's armor. And the story is right. The narrative is right. David wasn't meant to go in Saul's armor. In fact, as David moves in faith, as he's the only person who doesn't give in to the three giants, all of a sudden, a king's armor is not enough for him. He's going to be wearing a giant's armor from now on. Because how do you know when you're a good fit somewhere? When it comes to the God conversation, you know you're a good fit when it's something that's beyond you. Because if it was something that you were capable of on your own, you don't need God to show up. You don't need faith. You don't need courage. You just show up to the 9 to 5. But when you know you're a good fit for something, it's something that you feel like you don't have the resources, the experience, or the status for it. And that's what God is calling you to, because you weren't called to wear the armor of just any king. You were called to wear the armor of giants. So this is the call that we have. The author's moving us in the story of David and Goliath. He's saying, you have to keep your eyes on Jesus. You have to keep your eyes on the perspective of God. This means the means, the education, the resources, that all matters, but that's secondary. The story's trying to tell us God can use a rock. God can use a stick. That's secondary. Because God doesn't see the things the way the world sees it. He sees the end, the beginning from the end. It's a totally different thing. And suddenly people realize that this shepherd is actually the king. So as we leave this week, I encourage you to keep your eyes on Jesus. God is calling you to a bigger life than what you have right now. God has placed dreams. By the way, that doesn't look the same for everybody. It looks different. There are different callings. But God is empowering you, and he will empower you to raise those kids. Man, if you are fortunate and blessed to have a teenager in your house, you need like a super giant's armor. Don't look at you, look at Jesus. If you're right now considering a transition for your life, look at what God has planned for you. Look at what he can do for you, because this story isn't just David. It's a call for us to move in faith, move towards God. I'll call the worship team back up.
worshiping with us, if you want to sing this last song with us, sing along. If you need to go home, or if you need to get ready for cleanup in Red Deer today. In the eye of the storm, you remain in control. In the middle of the war, you guard my soul. You alone are the anchor when my sails are torn. Your love surrounds me in the eye of the storm. When my solid ground is falling out from underneath my feet, between the black skies and my red eyes, I can barely see. When I realize I've been sold out by my friends and my family, I feel the rain reminding me. In the eye of the storm, you remain in control. In the middle of the war, you guide my soul. You alone are the anchor when my sails are torn. Your love surrounds me in the eye of the storm. When my hopes and dreams are far away and I'm running out of faith, I see future, I picture slowly fade away. When the tears of pain and heartache are rolling down my face, I find my peace in Jesus' name. In the eye of the storm, you remain in control. In the middle of the war, you guide my soul. You alone are the anchor when my sails are torn. Your love surrounds me in the eye of the storm. In the eye of the storm, you remain in control. In the middle of the war, you guide my soul. You alone are the anchor when my sails are torn. Your love surrounds me in the eye of the storm. In the eye of the storm, you remain in control. In the middle of the war, you guide my soul. You alone are the anchor when my sails are torn. Your love surrounds me in the eye of the storm.
Thank you for joining us today. We have a quick bittersweet announcement I forgot to mention earlier. It's, as you may be aware, Red Deer Church, the other church, they lost their senior pastor. I think today's his last Sabbath, and he's moving. So there's been a search committee looking for a new senior pastor. Long story short, Caitlin and I will be the new senior couple going there. Apparently we got old. What happened? I don't know. It explains my back. Anyway, so for the next couple of months, as for Epic, nothing will change because it's just the one-man show for now. But Epic is in the process of looking for a new pastor. And our search committee will be meeting next week, and we'll keep you guys informed as well. The bitter part about it is that we're moving on to that church, and we've been tracking with this group. We've raised our families here, and that's the really hard part. And I think that Epic is in a place they're about to make a breakthrough, and you guys have plans to build, and have to hand this off, that's kind of a little heartbreaking. But we feel that God is calling us. The sweet part about it, though, is that we're not moving anywhere. So as much as He'll allow us, and as much as the new pastor will allow us, we still want to be part of this on a regular basis and be a resource and involve as much as we can. But I know the names that they're looking for, and you guys are getting a more handsome, better version of this. So we want to pray, we want to track with you, but ultimately, as soon as we know, we want to let you know. So we want to keep you guys in the loop. That's the announcement. There'll be more information coming as soon as we have it. We let you guys know. But for the next couple months, nothing is going to look different. It's probably going to happen sometime in the fall. Just keep it up to date. Thank you so much for joining us at Epic today, and can't wait to see you back at 1:30 for Green Deer. 1:30-ish. We're very loose. Thank you. Have a wonderful week. Thanks for leading, Joseph.
Thank you for your help. Appreciate it. You're welcome. It's so fun to play with you. Yeah, it is.